To stop a stranger from being publicly cornered at a charity auction, Orla Devlin lied about knowing him. She did not expect the stranger to be Stellan Rowe. The man whose investment firm had absorbed her father's gallery like it had never existed, or that the lie she invented on the spot would pull her into an arrangement that unraveled everything she thought she knew about the past 2 years. The Meridian Gallery's annual charity auction was not the kind of event Orla attended for pleasure. She attended because her former professor had offered her $200 to photograph the collection for the catalog, and because her landlord had just raised the rent on her East Vancouver apartment by $300 a month, and because some months a person simply had to show up and do unpleasant things for money. She was in the back corridor near the coat check, adjusting her camera lens, when she heard the voice. "This is neither the time nor the place for this conversation, Harmon." She didn't mean to listen. The two men were partly hidden by a tall display partition, and she would have walked past if the second voice hadn't returned with a quality she recognized immediately: the smooth, unhurried tone of someone who had prepared this moment in advance. "The time is exactly now," said the second man. "The place is exactly here. 80 people with phones in that room, Stellan. Say the wrong thing to me tonight, and by morning the story writes itself." Orla stopped walking. She knew the name Harmon Steed the way she knew the names of weather systems that had flattened things she loved. She also, though she was not yet certain of it, recognized the other man's profile. Tall, dark coat, jaw set with the particular tension of someone refusing to show how rattled they were. She had seen that profile in a newspaper photograph 2 years ago. In the caption beneath it, he had been described as a visionary. In the margin of the newspaper, her father had written the word vultures in blue pen, then crossed it out, then written it again. Stellan Rowe. She should have kept walking. She didn't. The reason was partly that Harmon Steed had once sat across from her father in a meeting and smiled while the terms of the dissolution were read aloud. Partly it was that Stellan was clearly being ambushed, and the look on Harmon's face was the same look she remembered from that day: enjoyment dressed up as business. And partly, if she was honest, which she was only in private, it was that she had very little left to lose and a camera around her neck, and an impulse she recognized too late to stop. She walked directly between the two men, took Stellan's arm and said, "There you are. I've been looking everywhere." Both men turned to look at her. Stellan Rowe's expression was impossible to read. Harmon Steed's was easier: surprise, then calculation, then something harder. "I don't believe we've met," Harmon said pleasantly. "Orla Devlin," she said, as if the name explained everything. "I'm with Stellan." The silence that followed lasted exactly long enough for her to understand what she had just done. "With me," Stellan repeated. His voice was entirely neutral. "We were supposed to meet at the entrance," she said, not looking at him. "You're late." Another silence. Then Stellan's hand closed over hers on his arm, lightly, deliberately, and he said, "My apologies. I got pulled into a conversation." He looked at Harmon. "We'll pick this up another time." Harmon studied Orla for a moment with the attention of someone making a mental note. "Of course," he said. "Enjoy your evening." He walked away. Stellan waited until Harmon had disappeared into the main room. Then he looked down at the hand she still had on his arm. She released it. "Thank you," he said, "for whatever that was." It was nothing. She was already regretting it. "You looked like you needed an exit." "I did." He paused. "Do you know who he is?" "Yes." "Do you know who I am?" She hesitated one beat too long. "Stellan Rowe." "Then you also know I don't typically require rescuing." "Noted," she said. "I'll remember that next time." He looked at her with an expression she couldn't name. Not warmth exactly, but something near it. "Give me 10 minutes. The room they found was a small administrative office off the main corridor, used for storing framing supplies and smelling strongly of varnish. Stellan stood near the window. Orla stayed near the door, which felt safer. "Harmon Steed has been trying to acquire the Pemberton Street development site for 8 months, Stellan said. "I'm finalizing the permits this week. If he creates a public incident tonight, anything that suggests my firm is in legal trouble, it's enough to delay the permits by 6 months while the rumors settle." "I know how that works," Orla said. "I believe you." He seemed to mean it. "Which brings me to the favor. Harmon will be watching me for the rest of the evening. If I'm visibly here with someone credible, he has less leverage. The story he wants to plant needs me isolated." She understood immediately. "You want me to keep pretending. For tonight, until the event ends." Orla looked at the middle distance and thought about it for the amount of time it took to be honest with herself. She was already here. She already knew the players. And she had, in fact, brought herself to this auction for a reason that had nothing to do with catalog photography, a reason she had not told anyone, which was that Harmon Steed had organized tonight as a silent partner, a fact almost no one knew, and that somewhere in the provenance documents for the featured lot was a paper trail she had spent 8 months trying to find. The featured lot was a collection of prints that had once belonged to her father's gallery. "I'll stay," she said, "but I need access to the provenance records room before the auction closes." Stellan's eyes sharpened. "Why?" "That's my condition. I'm not asking you to help me. I'm asking you not to notice." He considered this with the stillness of someone accustomed to making decisions carefully. "All right," he said. She nodded. "Then we understand each other." They returned to the main room together. Within 20 minutes she had understood several things. The first was that Stellan Rowe in a crowded room was not what she had expected. Attentive without being warm. Controlled without being stiff, with a particular way of deflecting questions that left the questioner feeling satisfied. He introduced her as Orla and did not offer a last name, which she was grateful for. The second thing was that Niall, the younger man who appeared at Stellan's elbow midway through the evening, and introduced himself as the one who got all the personality, was watching the two of them with barely suppressed delight. "How long have you known each other?" Niall asked, with the cheerfulness of someone who did not believe whatever answer was coming. "Long enough," Orla said. "She's deflecting," Niall told his brother. "She's answering," Stellan said. "Those are different things." Neil looked at Orla. "I like you already." The provenance records room was unlocked, as she had hoped. The collection catalogs were filed by year. She had 12 minutes before the lot closed. She found what she was looking for on page 47 of the 2019 binder. A transfer of ownership document with her father's signature, dated 3 weeks before he died, authorizing the donation of 14 prints to the auction house's permanent collection. She had never seen this document. Her father had never mentioned it. His handwriting on the signature line was, she looked more closely in the dim light, not quite right. The loop on the G in Gerald was closed when her father always left it open. She had grown up watching him sign things. She photographed every page. She was replacing the binder when she heard Harmon Steed's voice in the corridor. She did not move. She heard him speaking low to someone, and then she heard him say her father's name, Orla Devlin. And then, she doesn't know what she's looking for yet. Let it go. She stood in the dark room for a long moment after the footsteps faded. Then she walked back to the main room and found Stellan near the bar. "I found what I needed," she said quietly. He looked at her. Then he said slowly, "Devlin, Gerald Devlin's gallery." "Yes." He was quiet. "You didn't know," she said. It was not a question. "No." "I didn't think you did." She picked up a glass of water she didn't want. "That doesn't make it better." "I know," he said. And then, because he was apparently a man who meant things when he said them, "I'm sorry." It was the last thing she had expected from Stellan Rowe. She did not know what to do with it. He called her the next morning. "The arrangement was for one evening," she said. "It was. I'm proposing a different one." Orla sat on the edge of her kitchen table and listened. Stellan explained that Harmon Steed had spent the morning floating rumors. Nothing specific enough to act on, but enough to create noise. The Pemberton permits were in a delicate position. If the city council delayed the file review, 6 months became 12. "The most effective way to kill the story," he said, "is to give them a different one." "Let me guess," she said. "Yes." "A relationship, visible, plausible, 4 weeks." She thought about the photographs on her phone. The signature that wasn't her father's. The sound of Harmon Steed saying she doesn't know what she's looking for. "I need access to Rowe Capital's acquisition files from 2022, she said. "The Devlin Gallery portfolio." Silence on the line. "Those are internal documents," he said. I know, that's my condition. A pause. I'll need to review what you found first. Fair enough. 4 weeks, he said. 4 weeks, she agreed, and you don't make decisions for me. Noted. I mean it, Stellan. If we're doing this, we do it as equals. There was a pause she couldn't interpret. All right, he said, and for reasons she didn't examine too carefully, she believed him. His brother Niall was waiting in the lobby of the Burrard Street office when she arrived the following morning. He had a coffee in each hand and the expression of someone who had been tipped off. 1 sugar, he said, handing her a cup, because you seem like a 1 sugar person. 2, she said. Close enough. He fell into step beside her. Stellan told me you're working together on something. Yes. He used his professional voice when he said it, which means he's being careful, which means he's rattled, which means, in 28 years of knowing my brother, that he is not, in fact, merely working with you on something. Niall, Stellan said from the conference room doorway. I'm orienting her, Niall said pleasantly. She needs to know the building. She's been to buildings before. Niall looked at Orla. See what I deal with. She liked him immediately, which she had not expected. She was not generally a person who liked people immediately. It was something her father had always teased her about. Orla, you've decided about everyone in the room before you've taken your coat off, and she had never fully disagreed. The 4 weeks did not feel like a performance. That was the problem. They appeared together at the Rowe Capital Project launch, at a children's hospital fundraiser, at a lunch with the city councillor whose approval the Pemberton permits required. Each time, Stellan was, not warm exactly, but present in a way that surprised her. He remembered small things, that she took her coffee without milk, that she had a habit of standing slightly to the left at events so she could see the exit, that she went quiet when she was thinking hard, and said something sharp when she had made up her mind. You're watching me, she said, after the second event. I'm observing the situation, he said. The situation is me. He looked at her with the closest thing to discomfort she had seen on his face. Yes, he said, I suppose it is. The acquisition files took her 3 evenings to get through, with Stellan sitting across the conference table, working through his own documents and not asking questions. What she found on the 4th evening was not what she had expected. The 2022 acquisition of the Devlin Gallery portfolio had been initiated not by Rowe Capital directly, but by a holding company called Steed & Foss Partners, Harmon Steed's firm, as she knew. But the Foss she had not anticipated, Lenora Foss, Stellan's senior vice president, who had been with Rowe Capital for 11 years. She sat with the document for a long time. Stellan, she said. He looked up. She slid the document across the table without speaking. She watched him read it. She watched his face do the thing very controlled people's faces do when they have been surprised by something that matters. A slight stilling, then a careful absence of reaction. He set it down. Lenora has been with me since I started the firm. I know. This doesn't necessarily. There's more, Orla said. She placed the other documents in front of him, one by one. The fraudulent transfer authorization. The signature that wasn't her father's. 3 contracts between Steed and Foss in the auction house, all predating the Rowe Capital acquisition by 4 months. Harmon didn't just want to acquire the gallery, she said. He needed your firm to be the one holding the assets when it happened. Rowe Capital gave it legitimacy. Lenora gave him access. Stellan was quiet for a long time. Your father didn't authorize this, he said finally. No. And you've known this was connected to my firm since before the auction. I didn't know about Lenora. He looked at the table. Something moved through his expression that she recognized because she knew it from the inside. The weight of realizing that someone you trusted had used that trust against someone else entirely. I'm sorry, he said. I know I've said that. I know it doesn't. It helps a little, she said. Don't stop. He looked up at her. She did not look away. For a moment, the conference room was very quiet, the city 22 floors below them, and neither of them did anything about the distance between them, which was approximately the length of a conference table and felt considerably shorter. It was Niall who found the final piece, because of course it was. He called at 11:30 on a Thursday night. "The Pemberton site," he said without preamble. "Steed's been running a parallel permit application under a numbered company. He needs Stellan's application to fail, so his clears first. The company is registered to an address in North Vancouver. I'm sending you the filing now." "How did you find this?" "I know someone at the land registry. Also, I've been suspicious of Harmon Steed since the third time he called my brother buddy." She almost laughed. "Send it." There was a brief pause. "Orla, is my brother being an idiot about this?" "About which part?" "The part where you're in his conference room every night and he's pretending it's about documents." She was quiet. "Right," Niall said. "Tell him I said stop it." She told Stellan about the numbered company the next morning. She also told him, because she had decided to be precise, that she would be stepping back from the arrangement once the Pemberton permits cleared. 4 weeks was nearly up. The story had done its job. There was no reason to extend it. She said all of this very clearly. She was good at being clear. Stellan listened. Then he said, "I don't want you to step back." "The arrangement?" "I'm not talking about the arrangement," he said. "I'm aware the arrangement is ending. I'm talking about you specifically, stepping back from me specifically, which are two different things, and I would like you to understand that I know the difference." Orla opened her mouth, closed it. "I know this started as something convenient," Stellan said. "I know you came to that auction with your own reasons. I know my firm was part of something that hurt your family, and that the trust required to get past that is not small, and I'm not asking you to have arrived there yet." He paused. "I'm asking you not to decide you haven't." It was, she thought, possibly the most precise thing anyone had ever said to her. "You don't get to decide for me," she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I know," he looked at her, "that's why I'm asking." The documents reached the city's integrity commissioner on a Monday. By Wednesday, the numbered company registration had been flagged. By Thursday, Lenora Foss had taken an indefinite leave of absence, and Harmon Steed's parallel application had been suspended pending review. The Pemberton permits cleared on a Friday afternoon. Niall called to tell her before Stellan did. "He's celebrating alone in his office," Niall said, "which is the most Stellan way to celebrate anything. He keeps rearranging the same stack of folders. He could have called me. He's being careful. He does that when something actually matters to him." A pause. "There's a difference between careful and stupid, and I've given him long enough to figure out which one this is." She was already putting on her coat. She found him at his desk, exactly as described. Files arranged and rearranged, coffee gone cold. He looked up when she came in, and something in his face shifted into something she had never quite seen there before. "The permit's cleared," she said. "Yes." "So the arrangement is officially over," he said. "Yes." He looked at her steadily. Unless, she agreed. Neither of them moved for a moment. Then Orla set her bag down, not near the door, she noticed, and crossed to where he was standing, and Stellan stood, and the distance between them was not a conference table anymore. It was nothing at all. "I'm not pretending," she said. "I know," he said. "Neither am I." What followed was not simple, and Orla would not have wanted it to be. Stellan spent 4 months working with the city to restore the provenance records for the prints from her father's gallery. Most of what had been lost could not be returned. The gallery itself was gone, the building converted, the staff long dispersed. But the documentation could be corrected, and the prints could be properly attributed, and her father's name could be restored in the public record as their rightful originator. It was not everything. It was not nothing. On the morning the corrected provenance documents were filed, Stellan came to her apartment with coffee, 2 sugars, he had learned, and a manila envelope he did not explain until she opened it. Inside was the auction catalog from the night they had met. On the page listing the Devlin collection, he had written in the margin, "Rightful provenance, Gerald Devlin, founder." Beneath it, "Some things should never have been taken." Orla looked at the page for a long time. She thought about her father crossing out vultures and writing it again. She thought about how some decisions look like endings until you are far enough away to see what they were actually the beginning of. "Stellan," she said. He was watching her from across the kitchen, coffee in both hands, and he looked, she realized, nervous. Stellan Rowe, who did not show his hand, who went very still when deciding things, who had asked rather than told her from the very first arrangement. Nervous. He set down his coffee and crossed to her. "I'd like to propose something." "Another arrangement?" she said. "Not an arrangement." He looked at her steadily. "No conditions, no end date, no story for anyone else's benefit." He paused. "Just us, if you want that." Orla thought about the night she had grabbed a stranger's arm on an impulse she did not fully understand. She thought about the files, the conference table, the photograph of a signature that wasn't her father's. She thought about Niall handing her a coffee with the wrong number of sugars and Stellan remembering the right one. She thought about what it felt like to be seen by someone who looked carefully and did not look away. "I want that," she said. He kissed her in the small kitchen of her East Vancouver apartment, with the morning coming through the window and 2 coffees going cold on the counter, and it felt nothing like the moment at the gallery. No performance, no audience, nothing between them except this, and entirely, precisely right. Months later, when Niall told the story at their engagement dinner, he began the same way every time. "She grabbed his arm at an auction and I knew immediately." Stellan would say that was not what happened. Orla would say Niall was never in that corridor and had no idea what happened. Niall would say he had excellent instincts and did not require first-hand information. They never agreed on the details. They agreed on everything that mattered. Because sometimes the impulsive thing, the grab, the lie, the name you give before you understand what you're starting, turns out not to be a mistake at all. Sometimes it's the most honest thing you've ever done.